Hello and welcome to my channel, where I budget for the day-to-day while planning and saving for tomorrow. We are a family of 3, debt-free apart from our mortgage, living a simple but pleasant life in order to keep our future bright. For this video, I will be doing some planning work for my family's emergency fund. I've heard from so many different sources that an emergency fund can be anywhere from just $1,000 to a full 12 months of expenses. Now, early on in our marriage, my husband and I experienced a pretty serious health event that resulted in him not being able to work for almost a full year. And we were just out of college, so I had a pretty low income at the time. And we ended up being okay. My husband, he's healthy now. But it really kind of instilled in us that a liquid savings needs to be a priority. So even when we were paying off our debt, we always had a solid amount in liquid savings. We never did the whole drop down to $1,000 thing because we knew how quickly life can change. But I never had a clear idea of really how much our emergency fund should be. And now that we have a family, we're in our second home. Even if I had done this work 10 years ago, it could be very, very different with the life that we're living today. So that's actually what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to figure it out. So I have my emergency savings planning sheet here, and it consists of 4 categories. We have our typical monthly fixed expenses, typical monthly variable expenses, typical quarterly fixed expenses, and typical annual fixed expenses. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be looking at a budget that, a monthly budget that we currently work off of. And I have my February budget off to the side here. I didn't really have room for it here. So I will be referring to that, even though it's not a perfect example of a typical monthly budget for us and what our expenses are. It's pretty close, and it's a pretty good example of what I can go off of. So when I say emergency savings, I mean true emergencies, not the boiler went out. That's an emergency. That's a different kind of emergency. This type of emergency would be we are experiencing a loss of income. And the planning that I'm doing today is assuming a total loss of income. Neither my husband nor myself are bringing in an income for whatever reason. That could be so many different reasons why. And based on the nature of that reason for the loss of income, the expenses might be a little different. But for today, I'm going to plan based on what I know. A basic emergency. So we're going to start with our typical monthly fixed expenses. And the obvious one to start with, for us at least, is our home. To keep a roof over our head. And that would be our mortgage. And our mortgage is currently $1,784 a month. The next item will be our gas and electric bill. Let's keep the lights on. And this can vary month to month. It can vary widely. So I have a conservative estimate, conservative on the high end, of $250 a month. Typically, I think if I were to average out the year, it would be probably closer to 200, but I just want to have a little bit of a buffer in there. We have our cell service, or cell phones. And that's $100. we have our car insurance. Let's keep our cars on the road. That's $88. And our internet service. And that is $66 internet service. Let's stay connected, right? So this is a typical month of necessities. Now, in a non-emergency situation, we have a gym membership, we have subscriptions, things like that. That's not in our emergency savings. If we are experiencing something like that, those could be canceled or paused. So I'm going to add up these amounts, and I don't know if you can see, but there's a very faint number 1 in this box. I'm going to add up these amounts. And I get $2,288. Next, I'm going to move on to our monthly variable expenses, and this includes things like food, gas, pet food, that sort of thing. So let's start with groceries. And I think $400 would be a good estimate on that. It's hard to say. My family, this works for us about $100 a week. There's only 3 of us. We're going to stick with that. Transportation, mostly gas for the car. We're going to budget $100. Health, we do have some out-of-pocket health expenses that we budget for every month. It is something that would be very difficult to pause. And I'm going to budget $300 like we normally do. We have a cat. We should keep her fed in an emergency. She doesn't eat a lot, but we will budget $40 for both her litter and her food. For our kiddo, we'd want to maintain his lifestyle as much as we can in a stressful time. Again, depending on the nature of the emergency, who knows? But we're going to budget $75 for him. And then I'm going to include a miscellaneous category. Typically, we budget anywhere from $50 to $75 for miscellaneous, but I think I'm going to bump that up to $100 because life can happen. And it's hard to know exactly what you're going to need. All right, now we're going to add this up. And we get $1,015. All right, typical monthly variable expenses. Next, we're going to move on to our typical quarterly fixed expenses. And these are things that are billed to us every 3 months. There are only 2 of them. One of them is trash, and one of them is water. And our trash bill hovers right around $150. And our water bill is usually about $120, but I'm going to increase that a little bit just to give us, again, a little bit of a buffer. Again, we're just planning for emergency savings. It doesn't have to be to the dollar. I'm just going to add this up in my head to be $290. And then since these are quarterly fixed expenses, I'm going to try and figure out the monthly expense by dividing this by 3. And that is 96.666 infinity. So I'm going to round it up to 97. finally, we're moving on to our annual fixed expenses. Now, we do have annual bills that come to us, like we are Amazon Prime members, we are Costco members, but in the case of this, we would not renew if we, were in a situation where we weren't sure about our finances. We wouldn't renew them. So I'm not going to include them in our annual fixed expenses. Instead, the only annual fixed expenses I'm going to include are 2 cars, the annual registration. We have 2 cars, so I'm going to do number 1. And number 2. And we also have an umbrella insurance policy. And, if it's particularly dire, we could let that policy lapse, but I'd really prefer not to do that. So we're going to include it in here as one of those things we'd like to make sure we keep up on. Our car registration is $171 for the newer car, $70-ish for the older vehicle, and $165 for the umbrella policy. So I'm going to add this up. And I get 406. And I'm going to, since again it's annual, I'm going to divide it by 12, since it's only paid every 12 months, to get our monthly, what we need to plan for monthly. And it is 33.8333 infinity, and I'm going to round that up to 34. All right, so we have our 4 buckets, our 4 types of expenses. And we have our monthly amount for each type. So the next thing that I'm going to do, following kind of the instructions on this sheet, is I'm going to add boxes 1 through 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and multiply by the number of months in the tables below. So 1 month emergency expenses. So let's add these up. And I get 3,434. So next I'm going to multiply it by 3 to get a 3 months emergency savings amount. And that's 10,302. Next I'm going to take 3434 times 6 to get 6 months. That's 20,604. And finally, I'm going to take my 3434 times 12 to get that full year emergency savings. And that is 41,208. Okay, so what I've learned here then is a bare bones budget to live for a month without an income would be 3,434. That would be the 1 month ahead amount in savings. 3 months would be 10,302. 6 months is 20,604, and 12 months would be 41,208. Now, all of these numbers seem a bit intimidating, particularly the 6 month and the 12 month, but I don't think they're impossible. And now that I know what they are, I can work on a plan to get there, to reach those goals. I'm going to talk to my husband, and we're going to decide on what amount is an appropriate emergency fund for us. Thank you for coming along with me as I worked through this process. I feel better now knowing what these numbers are, because now I can have a plan. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any of your own personal philosophy on emergency savings, I would love to hear it, because it is different for every person. Thank you for coming along with me today. I will see you next time.